Hello, and welcome back to the first college football video of the college football season. Listen, man, Florida State just fucking lost. They're terrible. I had to come and make a video about it. The game just ended 9 minutes ago. So, I mean, this is just gonna be my reactions to the game and what I think, how I think shit went. It's crazy, bro. Clemson did it last year in the ACC. They lost week one on the road to an unranked opponent, and now Florida State they take the passing of the torch from Clemson to FSU. Now, if you're the best team in the ACC, I guess you got to lose to a unranked team on the road in week one. But let's get into the fucking game. It was in fucking Ireland of all places. What the hell? I don't even understand that. But let's get into it here. So where do I even start here? Do we just go possession by possession? Let's do it like that, or scoring possession by possession, I should say. Both teams started the game incredibly well. Florida State had a very good, methodical drive. I don't even think they went to third down. It was first, second down every time. Big plays, first downs every time. Lawrence Tofili, who I think is the best player on that offense, broke a very long run for a touchdown, and then they converted the 2 point conversion. So FSU came out literally as good as you possibly can. There are simply no flaws with FSU's entire first drive. The thing I noticed though is that they did not push the ball downfield vertically. Everything they did was screens, runs to the outside. They didn't really let DJ throw it downfield early, and that was the theme for the entire game. Georgia Tech answered in about 4 plays, or is that 6 plays? 6 plays, 79 yards. They looked more explosive than Florida State. Florida State's defense did not look ready to play, and Georgia Tech took advantage. Second quarter, FSU started to slow down. They did not have the sustained drives that they had to start the game, but they still were moving the ball pretty effectively. Again, not being able to throw the ball downfield as much, but still being able to move the ball with the run game and stuff like that. Lawrence Tafili had like 50 total yards in the first half, I think. But Georgia State, yet again, with a 75-yard drive to answer, and they actually took the lead 14-11, and then it required a 59-yard field goal for FSU to tie the game at halftime. And this is what I didn't like. FSU, after tying the game at halftime to an unranked team as the number 10 team in the country, they went into halftime happy. I didn't like that visual. I'm like, you're a top 10 team playing an unranked team, and you're happy to tie the game at halftime. Like, I did not like that visual for Florida State at all. And then the second half, Florida State just looked terrible. I'll be honest with you, DJ looked a lot worse than he did in the first half, and that's saying something because he had like 70 yards in the first half. The run game got completely shut down. I think Georgia Tech quickly realized that they were not going to be threatened vertically. They were not going to be threatened deep by DJU. They stuffed the box and they shut down Florida State's run game. They had one good drive there. It was a very impressive drive. Florida State's last drive that ended up being their final drive of the game. They converted multiple fourth downs. DJ actually made two pretty good throws in that drive, but that was it. Georgia Tech got the ball last. As you can see there, 12 plays, 49 yards. They drained the clock out and they took it home. I mean, they got it exactly where they wanted it. But here's the interesting thing to me. Throughout this game, I just kept on thinking, Florida State's the better team. They're the more prepared team. They're not going to make as many mistakes as Georgia Tech is going to make. And that was true. Neither team turned the ball over. It was a very clean game in that sense, but Georgia Tech I think was the more penalized team. I think FSU had a few holdings or something like that on offense, but Georgia Tech fumbled the ball twice. They recovered it both times. So they put the ball on the turf twice. Florida State could not come up with either of those turnovers. And on the final drive of Georgia Tech, they had a false start, I think, that made it a very third and 7, 3rd and 8. Florida State could not get the stop there. So it's like Georgia Tech was making the mistakes. They missed a field goal as well. It's like, so if you just think about it like this, Georgia Tech missed a field goal, fumbled the ball twice, got a false start on their final drive to put them in a tough position, and FSU on their final drive converted 2 fourth downs. All those things go in FSU's favor, and they still lost the game. They still lost the game. It's just crazy to me to think that. And now let's break down what I really think and why I really think Florida State is just not that good of a team. Listen, 3 days ago, I made a video about my most overrated college football teams. As you can probably guess, Florida State was in that video. And I just said it like this: they are not good enough. They did not retain as much talent from last year's team to be a top 15 team in the country, in my opinion. I had them at 19 before this game. They are now going to be out of my top 30. They suck. But I said there's no way on earth you can call this a top 10 team in the country. And obviously that rang true because they got strictly outplayed by Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech did not need a fluke in this game. They straight up outplayed Florida State from beginning to end. And they were the team that still made more mistakes. They didn't need a turnover from Florida State. They didn't need a block punt or a block field goal or a kick return for a touchdown. They simply drove the ball more effectively than Florida State did the entire game, which is insane to me. Neither of these quarterbacks looked good. I'll be honest with you. I thought Haynes King showed more heart. I think he looked better, but that does not mean he looked good in any way. He had 200 total yards, no touchdowns. He missed a very easy bomb of a touchdown for 40 yards. He just overthrew the guy. So I don't think he looked good. But man, DJU, he had what did he have? He also both quarterbacks had exactly 200 yards. But DJ threw the ball 11 more times than Haynes King did. Um, listen, man, I I've hated a lot on DJU throughout this channel. I don't want to keep that as a trend moving forward, but it's like this is the thing. I can't hate on him anymore because he is the guy that everybody knows he is. He's not a good quarterback. He's above average on his good days, average on most days, and this day he was below average, I thought. You know what he is? He is not he is simply as good as the talent around him. And unfortunately for Florida State, they don't have the talent that they did last year. Their top running back left for the NFL. Their top two receivers left for the NFL. Their top tight end left for the NFL. They don't have the weapons. I didn't think a single receiver on Florida State looked good this game, except for Ja'Kai Douglas. He made a few pretty big plays. Nobody else impressed me. Lawrence Tafili had two big plays in the first half. After that, he was completely shut down. Roydell Williams, I didn't think he was all that good. I mean, I guess he had 69 yards, so that's a pretty good game with a touchdown. But it's like, man, and FSU's defense was really disappointing, man. I mean, they put the guys up on the screen. You got Patrick Payton, Marvin Jones, the transfer from Georgia, Fentrell Cypress, guys like that. I thought their second level did very, very bad this game. It's just poor tackling, um, bad gap responsibility. They got fooled a lot by Georgia Tech's motion. Georgia Tech had a lot of open lanes on the outside. They didn't do a great job of running in between the tackles. But when Georgia Tech got outside, you can see it for yourself: 190 rushing yards. They had nearly 100 more rushing yards than Florida State did. Florida State lost the battle on both lines of scrimmage to Georgia Tech. That is a bad sign, bro. That's a very bad sign. Jamal Haynes, yeah, I know he had 1,000 yards last year. He might be even better this upcoming year. 91 yards, two touchdowns, and he only had what is that? 13 touches. 13 touches, 91 yards, two touchdowns. Jamal Haynes had an amazing game. Haynes King, like I said, he showed a lot of heart this game. He runs like Josh Allen. Nothing looks fast. Nothing looks smooth. It's all hard nosed, rough. But it gets the job done. He had a solid game. I'll give him a B for this game. I'll give DJ a C minus. I just didn't think he looked very impressive. I mean, and you can see the two fumbles there. FSU did not recover a single one. I mean, listen, the story of this game is really just it comes down to the AP poll and the people that make these polls focusing way too much on last season when it comes to certain teams. But if you notice, they don't do that for everybody. Like for example, a lot of people would tell you that Washington's a 5 or 6 win team next year because they lost all their guys in the NFL and they lost a bunch of talent and whatever the case may be. Florida State did the exact same thing. Florida State lost way too much talent to last year's team to be competitive in the ACC this year. I said that from the beginning, but for some reason, people think that Florida State's a top 10 team and Washington's unranked. I don't understand the hypocrisy there, but I think Washington's going to have a much better year than FSU, but that's besides the point. I did not predict this. I'll say, even though I was low on FSU, I had FSU going. Let me see, what's their final record? I had FSU going 8-4 this season. That might be generous. I think 8-4 might be their ceiling at this point. I think 7-5 is possible, but yeah, I had FSU winning this game 24-20. They lost 21-24, but yeah, man. And Georgia Tech, I think I was underrating Georgia Tech. I had Georgia Tech finishing 5-7 because I know that it might sound strange them winning less games than the year before, but I just didn't think they have a tough schedule, man. They play a lot of good teams this year, but based off this performance, I'm fair. I think I'm very fair to say that I was underrating Georgia Tech, and they may be a lot better than I thought they were going to be. Um, and if they beat Georgia State, by the way, later this week, they will start the season 2-0, and they will certainly be. I mean, I'm going to have them in my top 25, but they'll be 2-0 in everybody's top 25 for sure. I mean, Georgia Tech is now gotten off, and let me actually see this because I'm just trying to see moving forward. They play Syracuse week 2. After that, they play VMI. Georgia Tech could easily, they should start off 4-0. Then they play Louisville. 4-0 Georgia Tech playing probably 3-0 Louisville in Louisville. That'll be a great game. That'll be a great game, actually. I'll be very interested to see that. That might be one of the biggest games in the ACC coming up. So keep an eye on that game now. Georgia Tech has now emerged as a very interesting team because if they start off 4-0, they're going to be in everybody's top 20 by the time that Louisville game rolls around, which would just be insane to think about. But they deserve it. They outplayed Florida State consistently. And even though Florida State was nowhere near number 10 in my rankings, absolutely without a shadow of a doubt, Georgia Tech has earned a spot in the top 25. And Florida State season, listen, I'm not going to say it's over, but if we take a look at their schedule, right? I had them losing 4 games regardless of if they won this game or not. But now without this, I think without a shadow of a doubt, they lose to Memphis or SMU. I'm gonna say they lose to Memphis. I already predicted that in these little rankings right here, but they absolutely lose one of these 2 games. Both these teams are my top 30, Memphis and SMU. Clemson, Duke, Miami, North Carolina. This is an insane stretch right here. This is an insane 5 game stretch. All of these teams are my top 35. I think at Miami and Notre Dame, pencil those in as losses. So that's 4 right there. And then you still got Clemson, Duke, North Carolina, Florida. You take your pick. You think they lose 1, 2, 3? Let's just count here. 1, 2 between one of these two. I'll say 3 between one of these two. 4, 5, 7-5 is looking like a good season for FSU this year, which is crazy to think about. And I don't think people should be disappointed in that. People have set their expectations way too high for Florida State this year. I think 8 wins would be a great season for them. But yeah, man, the roster's not good enough. They relied too heavily on the transfer portal last year, and the roster now is suffering because of it. Um, it is what it is, man. They're not good enough, and they're going to have a pretty rough year. And I think this might actually be the last time, unless they beat Memphis, this might be the last time FSU is in my top 30 the entire season, which is crazy to think about. But that's how college football works, man. What a game. What a game to kick the season off. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new. And it's time to upload fucking 4 or 5 videos a week now for college football. So I'll see you next one. Peace.